It was the night before Halloween when my friend Sarah invited me to her family's new house for a small gathering. The house was old, a large colonial-style mansion that her family had recently moved into, located on the outskirts of town. They hadn't been there long and were still in the process of settling in, but Sarah was excited to show the place off. It seemed perfect for a spooky get-together, especially since Hollowbrook House had a bit of a reputation. Locals claimed it was haunted by its previous owners, a family who had mysteriously vanished in the late 1800s. Of course, none of us believed in that sort of thing. We figured the stories were just Halloween legends, passed down over the years to scare people. When I arrived, the house looked even creepier than I expected. Tall, dark windows stared down at me like hollow eyes, and the barren trees lining the driveway seemed to reach out like skeletal arms. Sarah and a few other friends were already inside, laughing and setting up decorations. The atmosphere felt light-hearted, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. As the night went on, we decided to explore the house. It was massive, with winding staircases, narrow hallways, and rooms that seemed to have been untouched for decades. Most of the furniture was old and covered in dust, adding to the eerie ambiance. Sarah told us about the ghost stories surrounding the house, laughing as she recalled how her younger brother had been too scared to sleep in his room because he kept hearing footsteps at night. "He's such a baby," she joked, but I noticed her voice wavered a bit. We eventually made our way up to the attic, which Sarah claimed was the creepiest part of the house. The door to the attic was stiff, and it took some effort to open it, revealing a long, dark staircase leading upward. I felt a chill as we climbed the stairs, the air growing colder with each step. The attic was dimly lit by a single bulb, and it was filled with old trunks, broken furniture, and boxes that looked like they hadn't been touched in years. As we poked around, Sarah found an old photo album tucked away in a dusty corner. The album was filled with black and white pictures of the family who used to live in the house: a man, a woman, and 2 children. But there was something unsettling about the photos. In each one, the family members' faces were blurred or distorted, almost as if they had been scratched out of the picture. "Okay, that's creepy," Sarah muttered, flipping through the pages. Suddenly, one of the guys in our group, Mark, shouted, "Hey! Did you guys hear that?" We all stopped and listened. At first, there was nothing, just the sound of the wind whistling through the trees outside. But then I heard it. A soft, rhythmic thumping, like someone walking down the stairs just below us. The sound was faint but unmistakable. "Maybe it's your brother," I suggested, trying to keep my voice steady. Sarah shook her head. "He's spending the night at a friend's house. No one else is here." We all stood frozen, staring at the open attic door. The thumping sound continued, growing louder as if someone, or something, was slowly making its way up the stairs. Without warning, the light bulb flickered and went out, plunging the attic into complete darkness. Panic set in. We scrambled to find our phone flashlights, shining them toward the door. But there was nothing there. No one on the stairs. No one in the attic with us. Just silence. "Let's get out of here," I whispered, my heart racing. We bolted down the stairs and back into the safety of the living room, locking the door behind us. The thumping had stopped, but the atmosphere in the house had changed. It felt heavy, oppressive, like something unseen was watching us. We decided to call it a night, too freaked out to continue with our Halloween fun. As we gathered our things, Sarah's face suddenly went pale. She pointed toward the large mirror hanging in the hallway, her hand shaking. In the reflection, we could see a figure standing just behind us, a tall, shadowy shape with no distinct features, its head tilted slightly, as if observing us. But when we turned around, the hallway was empty. I've never run out of a house so fast in my life. That was the last time Sarah ever invited anyone to Hollowbrook House. It was supposed to be the best Halloween party of the year. My friend Jake had rented out an old abandoned barn on the outskirts of town, and everyone in our high school was going to be there. The place was rumored to be haunted, which made it even more appealing for a Halloween event. Jake had gone all out with the decorations, fake spider webs, strobe lights, eerie music, and even hired someone to dress up as a creepy clown to scare people. I arrived around 9 p.m. with my best friend Lisa. The barn was packed with people, and the energy was electric. Everyone was in costume, laughing and dancing, the eerie atmosphere adding to the thrill of the night. The barn itself was massive, with high ceilings and old wooden beams that creaked under the weight of the years. It felt like the perfect place for a Halloween party, or a horror movie. At first everything was great. We danced, drank punch, and took pictures with everyone's costumes. But as the night wore on, strange things started happening. It began with little things. Lights flickering, strange noises coming from the rafters, and a cold draft that seemed to come out of nowhere. At one point, Lisa and I decided to take a break from the chaos and explore the barn. There was an upstairs loft area that had been blocked off, but we figured it would be fun to sneak up there. After all, what's Halloween without a little adventure? We climbed the old wooden stairs, trying to be quiet so no one would see us. The loft was dark, with only a small window letting in the pale moonlight. It was mostly empty, except for some old farming tools and a few bales of hay. But as soon as we stepped into the room, I felt a strange sense of unease, like we weren't alone. "Do you hear that?" Lisa whispered, her voice barely audible over the distant music from downstairs. I listened. At first I didn't hear anything, but then, faintly, I caught the sound of something scratching against the wood. It was coming from the far corner of the loft, where the shadows were the deepest. "Maybe it's a rat," I said, trying to sound calm, though my heart was racing. We slowly walked toward the sound, our phone flashlights barely cutting through the darkness. That's when we saw it. In the corner, crouched behind an old barrel, was a figure. It was dressed in rags, its long, tangled hair hanging over its face. At first, I thought it was one of the partygoers, maybe someone playing a prank. But then it looked up. Its eyes were wide and bloodshot, and its mouth was twisted into a grotesque grin, showing jagged yellow teeth. It was no costume. Lisa screamed, and the figure lunged at us, moving with unnatural speed. We bolted down the stairs, not daring to look back. By the time we reached the main floor, the music had stopped, and the lights had gone out completely. The barn was pitch dark, except for the occasional flash of strobe lights, casting eerie shadows across the walls. People were panicking, pushing and shoving to get out, but the figure from the loft was nowhere to be seen. We ran out of the barn and didn't stop until we reached my car. As we drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw the figure standing at the entrance of the barn, watching us leave. No one believed us when we told them what happened. They thought it was part of the Halloween prank, just another scare. But I know what I saw that night, and I haven't been to a Halloween party since. Halloween has always been my favorite holiday, so when my friend Katie invited me to a costume party at her place, I was all in. I had spent weeks perfecting my costume, a Victorian ghost with an old-fashioned dress and a pale, eerie mask. Katie's party was known for being one of the best in town, and I was excited to show off my costume. The night started out fun enough. The house was decorated to the nines, cobwebs, skeletons, candles flickering in the windows. The atmosphere was perfect, and the party was packed with people in all kinds of creative costumes. I recognized most of the guests, but there were a few faces I didn't recognize, which wasn't surprising considering how many people showed up. As the night wore on, I kept noticing one guest in particular. They were wearing a black hooded cloak and a plain white mask, completely expressionless. I couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman, but their presence felt off. They didn't talk to anyone, didn't drink or dance. They just stood in the corner, watching. I tried not to let it bother me, figuring it was just someone who liked to stay in character. But as the party progressed, I realized that no one else seemed to notice them. They were always in the background, just out of sight, but when I looked directly at them, they would disappear into the crowd. At one point, I decided to approach Katie and ask her who it was. We were in the kitchen, away from the music and noise, when I brought it up. "Katie, who's the person in the white mask? They've been creeping me out all night." Katie frowned. "White mask? I don't remember inviting anyone in a white mask." I described the person again, but she shook her head. "I have no idea who that is." A cold shiver ran down my spine. We both glanced toward the living room, and there, standing just beyond the doorway, was the figure. The white mask, expressionless and unsettling, stared back at us. "Okay, that's seriously creepy," Katie muttered. "Let's go find out who they are." We walked toward the living room, but by the time we got there, the person was gone. We searched the entire house, asking people if they had seen someone in a white mask. No one had. As the night drew to a close and people started leaving, I couldn't shake the feeling that the masked figure had been watching me the entire time. Katie was just as spooked as I was, but we laughed it off, trying to convince ourselves it was probably just a prank. It wasn't until I got home that the real horror set in. As I took off my costume and sat down to unwind, I heard a faint tapping at my window. I froze. My apartment was on the second floor. There was no way anyone could be outside. I slowly walked to the window and pulled back the curtain. There, standing on the fire escape, was the figure in the white mask. The same mask, the same hooded cloak, staring at me through the glass. I screamed and backed away, but when I looked again, they were gone. Just like at the party, they had vanished into the night. I don't know who or what was wearing that mask, but I haven't been able to sleep soundly since. Every time I close my eyes, I see that expressionless white face, watching me, waiting. And Halloween is never going to be the same again.